She's just sitting there on her phone, and this psycho stabs her in the neck 3 times. Just sitting there, he just kind of watches. You can see him pulling the knife out right there, and she's just scrolling on her phone and now is dead. So Teresa, JD, Chief Operations Officer at Pinnacle Recovery Services. Wow! So her releases criminals and then funnels them over to her company rather than incarcerating them and keeping them off the streets so that they're not eliminating individuals on the street. And there's not a lot of stories on this, right? So all of this reporting is coming from X and Twitter because no one else wants to talk about it or investigate it. Our scumbag media doesn't want to talk about this case. And when they do talk about it in one of these very rare articles, as you'll see, they are trying to bury this everywhere else. You can see people are doing searches on this story. Here, this came over from Megan Basham. She says, despite the release of the video, and we'll go into the story in a second, no one is talking about this horrific elimination that happened on the Metro. Looking at Washington Post, looking for her name, the name of the woman who was eliminated by a maniac on the light rail. Irina Zarutska is her name. Did Washington Post talk about it? No. Did New York Times talk about it? No. How about AP News? No. How about ABC News? Nothing. Wall Street Journal? Nothing. NBC News? Dead. Nothing around, okay? They don't want to talk about it because it doesn't serve their narrative. And it's not just that, all right? A lot of people are pointing this out. Charlie Kirk saying, where is everybody, okay? You'll scream about Daniel Penny constantly. You'll do the George Floyd thing for days, months, years, but you're not going to talk about this woman who was eliminated on the light rail. Now, breaking, it's been revealed that the New York Times has written over 100 times about Daniel Penny. And maybe if there was a Daniel Penny on the bus or on this Metro, then this woman would still be alive. But the New York Times likes to talk about stuff that is white on black, essentially. And if it's the opposite of that, if it's a horrific crime, if it supports Trump's narrative that maybe crime is out of control in these various cities and we got to do something about it, they don't want to talk about it, period. Then we wake up after this has been percolating for several days and we see that Axios comes out and they're kind of, they have to talk about it now because everybody's screaming about it, saying, how dare you? This is a cover up. This was a woman who came over from Ukraine. She's a refugee. We're talking about crime in America. It's got all the newsworthy checkboxes that you could hit, and they don't want to talk about it because it doesn't serve their narrative. If it's George Floyd, they'll give him a state funeral. But if it's Irina Zarutska, you get news articles like this over from Axios saying the gruesome video of the fatal knife attack on Irina on a light rail car in Charlotte is drawing attention from mega influencers seeking to elevate the issue of violent urban crime. We're not seeking to elevate anything. We didn't murder her, and accuse mainstream media of undercovering shocking cases. It's like, hello, I just shared with you the evidence. Nobody wants to talk about it because it doesn't serve their narrative. So then Axios published this article and they said the stabbing video fuels MAGA's crime message. You go, oh my goodness. Maybe the crime message is right. Maybe it's something that you shouldn't just say is, like MAGA's exploiting this woman's death or something like that, right? This is horrific crime and is emblematic of a bunch of policy failures, top to bottom, about why this dude was out so much. Now, MAGA influencers, they say, are drawing attention to this. They're accusing us of undercovering these shocking cases. Yes, we are. We just saw it. You have been browbeaten into finally writing about it, and then when you write about it, you say it's just MAGA exploiting it. Okay. The big picture says the rising number of surveillance cameras has become a big accelerant in this case, and Trump also talked about it, even at the religious ceremony. Trump says, I know all about it. Elon Musk talked about it. Kirk, Lee, Sean Duffy, bunch of people talking about it, but the people who don't want to talk about it are the media. Now, the dude's been arrested, charged with murder, obviously, and I've got some reporting here from Charlotte, North Carolina, saying the victim in this case has been identified as Irina Zarutska. Okay, this happened all the way back, published August 23rd. This has been going on for a while. Finally, the media talks about it a little bit, and when they do, they say, MAGA won't shut up. As a result of the continued investigation, DeCarlos Brown Jr., 34, was identified as the suspect in this case, and Brown was transported to Atrium Health with non-life-threatening injuries because when he stabbed this woman in the neck 3 times, he cut his hand. Yeah. So a third party was transported to Atrium Health for non-related medical event, probably having a stroke or something. Mrs. Zarutska's next of kin has been notified. The investigation is ongoing and more information will be released. Anyone with any information, let us know. Then they gave us more. So on the day before that update, they said detectives in the homicide unit there are conducting a homicide investigation. On Friday, August 22nd, shortly before 10 p.m., and this comes over from charlottenc.gov, officers responded to an assault with a deadly weapon for call service in the 1800 block of Camden. Upon arrival, officers discovered one victim with sustained knife wounds. The subject was pronounced dead on scene by the medic. Currently, Apparently, a person of interest is in custody. Homicide unit detectives responded to the scene to conduct an investigation. They processed it. They got physical evidence. They got all the cameras. It's definitely the dude. But what's interesting about this murderer is he's got a pretty bad rap, right? He's been in and out of prison for a long time. They just keep letting him out. Here's the scene. Obviously, this woman, you can see the video. They cut it from the stabbing, which is well appreciated. But she's just sitting there on her phone, and this psycho stabs her in the neck 3 times. Just sitting there. He's just kind of watches. You can see him pulling the knife out right there. And she's just scrolling on her phone and now is dead. And so here is, of course, a photograph of her. A lot of people asking, why is this not national news? Why wasn't this all over the place? And you can see here, okay, after the stabbing happens, so he just jumps up, stabs her. He's sitting there for minutes, stabs her in the neck 3 times. And you can see him pulling the knife out and all the things. Then he's walking around bleeding all over the place. If that's his blood, probably, or her blood, but his hand is bleeding all over the place. And he's just walking around for minutes. Takes his shirt off. Got to wrap my hand up because I cut myself as I was hacking this woman to death. And the rest of the people are just kind of like, what the heck? All right, just still sitting there. Nobody really realizes what's going on. Then they leave that dude and they're all trying to get off at the next station. And he's just standing there. And it's like 2 minutes of video here, standing here, but I don't know how long that went on. And I'm waiting for, Dave Chappelle and some of these other guys to come out and say, people sat around for 8 minutes and 42 seconds and nobody did anything. Constantly, right? Nobody is screaming about that at all. It's just our side because they don't care if it's the opposite. And it's very curious here because what's happening as we go through this, we'll find out this dude's background is just horrific. They just kept letting him out constantly until this thing happened. Libs of TikTok also did some searches over on Reuters, NPR, and all of the other locations, CNN. Nothing. For George Floyd, tons of stories, constantly. Then Dave Chappelle and these other people who made a big thing of George Floyd, BLM, we had riots for months and all this stuff. Turns out George Floyd had fentanyl in his blood, methamphetamines, COVID, marijuana, a bunch of other things. And during the trial, remember the testimony was from the coroner that his heart failed. It wasn't asphyxiation. 74,000 on George Floyd. We have to be cognizant of what this is, right? These are the media. These are people who are trying to exacerbate, race problems in America, and they just go one side against the other. And it's a weird thing, right? 74,000 articles about this dude, this crackhead dude, who I don't want to have been dead or die, but the guy was like a repeat criminal constantly. And they lifted him up, the whole hagiography for this dude, the saint anointment of George Floyd. But Irina, an innocent woman who's a beautiful refugee from Ukraine, sitting on a bus stabbed to death, total silence, okay? Like zero in most of these entities. Axios comes out and then smears the right on it. Now, they even made up a GoFundMe for this dude, and they're trying to figure out who started this GoFundMe. And there's a lot of reporting on this, and we don't know exactly if this is the dude who started the GoFundMe, but it's a curious situation because apparently this guy, Ryan Nicholas Rangham, is organizing a fundraiser over on GoFundMe for the murderer. Says, while what happened on the Blue Line was a tragedy, we mustn't lose sight of the fact that the system failed him and mental health services of North Carolina, and as such, he's not entirely to blame for what happened. All right. We endeavor to raise funds for his legal defense. And of course, this dude, somebody looked him up, and apparently he had attempted rape charges. So I guess 2 peas in a pod going together. Now, his background is also very problematic because he's been arrested this many times. You can see 2 million views here. I am your yes, no got this one. And somebody's assembling, all of the mugshots of this dude. And so year after year, right here, look at all of them. They just keep letting him out. And you say, well, nobody can do anything about it. And this is like the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of your results are coming from 20% of your efforts. It's the same thing that applies here. It's basically a universal maxim. So what we're seeing is a system that has absolutely failed. Not in that he, wasn't treated kindly enough or something. It's that the government didn't protect society against this person. And that needs to be reconciled as we're starting to see. And we just went through defund the police and white patriarchy and all the things. And we're recognizing that the data doesn't support that claim and seeing it happen in real time. Now, district attorney is this guy who is going to be prosecuting this case, and his name is Spencer Merriweather. And he says the primary duty of the district attorney is to prosecute all criminal cases. And he's got a devoted career, and we'll see what he brings and how this case goes. Now, the person who let this dude out apparently is this woman, Teresa Stokes. And what's curious is one of these people also has like a treatment center for like mental people. So in other words, they're releasing people and then they go use their services. And here's this connection. Elisa Chin Gray nominated Stokes. Carla Archie appointed Stokes. Both are Democrats. Both need to answer questions about this, and we'll see if they do. And even Piers Morgan is asking about it. He's saying, why is this disgusting, senseless, unprovoked murder of a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee, where all the Ukrainian flag left lefties screaming about this. By a man named Carlos Brown Jr. on a train from Charlotte not getting more attention. Why not? Is it because he was black and not Russian? Is that why? If he was Russian, maybe would they care about it? But it's okay since he's black, he can just stab Ukrainians in the neck. No one cares if you're Ukrainian, apparently. All the Ukrainian flags who hyperventilate about everything constantly, all very quiet today. And of course, the same people who have, the articles and the bylines in these mainstream media sources. So nothing is even, right? It's a double standard, top to bottom. And here's more from C3, who's been doing some amazing digging on this. Says the magistrate judge, how did this guy keep getting out of custody? Well, she, Teresa Stokes, was releasing criminals like DeCarlos Brown Jr. so they could get taxpayer-paid treatment at her own company, Pinnacle Recovery Services. So Teresa, JD, Chief Operations Officer at Pinnacle Recovery Services. Wow. So her releases criminals and then funnels them over to her company rather than incarcerating them and keeping them off the streets so that they're not eliminating individuals on the street. And there's not a lot of stories on this, right? So all of this reporting is coming from X and Twitter because no one else wants to talk about it or investigate it, because journalists by and large are cowards who have a political propaganda position that they want to shove down everybody's throat. And it can only go so far. People can start to realize, oh, well, this is not what you're saying is happening. We're watching the opposite happen in our cities all around the country. We're pretty sick of it. And so Chris Brunette said her name is Irina Zarutska, and she's got a GoFundMe set up. It's at $39,000. Okay. Let's see if it's a little bit more than that, but it should be six figures at least. In a sane country, this would be much bigger than George Floyd. George Floyd was a criminal who was under arrest. It's up to 80,000 now. It's good to see. Here's what they posted. Our dear friends, our Valeria and her husband has suffered a terrible tragedy. Yesterday, their niece Ira, who was 23 years old, was killed. Ira had recently arrived in the United States seeking safety from the war and hoping for a new beginning. And so it's Ira. So they're calling her Ira instead of Irina. Irina had just arrived recently in the United States seeking safety from the war and hoping for a new beginning, and tragically her life was cut far too soon. This is an irreparable loss for her family. We have created this fundraiser to support Valeria and her loved ones during this heartbreaking time. Any support you can give, whether through a donation or simply sharing, will mean so much. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. They also write it in Ukrainian, and she's dead. And the media, of course, just screams at us. How dare you talk about this? Well, it's kind of a repeat thing. We're seeing a lot of this happening, and we're all getting kind of fatigued out about it, and we're sick of having it happen. So what is happening now is we'll keep our eye on this case, and this guy is going to be prosecuted for murder. And so that will be happening. We'll see what the charges ultimately look like. But the fact is, the media is blaming the right. They're saying that, how dare you talk about these horrific stories? Shut up. Let us give George Floyd a state funeral, have a rigged trial, and basically convict him in the court of public opinion and write 70,000 articles about it, right? Give a hagiography for this dude. When the opposite happens, I mean, this is way worse than anything that happened with George Floyd. He died of a heart failure, according to the medical coroner who worked for the government who came in and testified. Wasn't asphyxiated with the knee on the neck. And they still lied and turned it into something. Okay, this is, cops attacking certain communities. The whole thing is ridiculous. The double standard would never get called out if it wasn't for X and for the people reporting on it. And so we're grateful for it. We'll keep our eye on this because the truth cannot be buried anymore by the mainstream garbage scumbag media.